It's 7:01 on Monday, May 20th, 2024, and I call this regular City Council meeting to order. I do want to thank everyone for joining us this evening, and if Councilmember White would lead us in the flag salute. Councilmember Cedar is absent this evening. Can I get a motion to excuse?
I make a motion to excuse
Second.
Councilmember Cedar.
It's been moved by Councilmember Cedar and seconded by Councilmember Hall to excuse, it's been moved by Councilmember Strader and seconded by Councilmember Hall to excuse Councilmember Cedar this evening. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried 6-0. For staff this evening, we have our City Attorney Soming, we have Director Madden, Director Simpson, Chief Hernandez, and our City Clerk Tricia Summers. Moving on to citizen participation, we have no one signed up this evening, so we'll move on from there. Additions and deletions. Are there any additions or deletions to tonight's agenda? Councilmember Whalen?
Well, I just wanted to make a comment on the council comments from last week. Is this the appropriate time just to include something that was missing in the typing?
You want to revise the minutes?
Yes.
Okay.
Just slightly.
Okay.
I had asked a question about cleanliness of certain things in the city and so forth, and it was mentioned about cleaning the rocks and so forth, but also the highlight of that opened up with all of the, vaults, I think you call them, for electricity and so forth. Like at the skate park, we've got the nice mural around it with the space age and so forth, but all of those are in need of cleaning. And it just wasn't stated in the minutes, so just to reiterate that.
Councilmember Whalen, I'm sorry, I had a hard time hearing you. What exactly do you wanted added to the minutes for May 6th? What exactly do you want added to your section?
Let me find the page,
Okay.
if you don't mind. In the meeting minutes included in this, it mentions that in my remarks, let me just. I'm sorry. There is a comment under Councilmember Whalen that retaining walls at Milton Road look great. Next step is skate park cleaning. And I just want to remind folks and so forth, yes, the rocks and so forth need to be cleaned, but citywide, all of our electrical vaults, which I think they are, I'm not positive about that, the bases of them, well, they don't complement the beautification of the vaults above them. They're filthy too. So just a reminder that that's included in that. Thank you.
Do you want us to revise the minutes to reflect that?
I'm sorry.
Do you want us to revise the minutes to reflect that?
That or put them in the minutes for tonight.
Okay. We can revise it. So Tricia, how did you want to revise that? Stones. Okay. Councilmember Whalen, if we add to your second bullet point, stones around skate park and electrical boxes could use cleaning?
Yes, but citywide, not just at the skate
Okay.
park, citywide.
Okay. Stones around city park and electric boxes citywide.
Yes, please.
Okay. Would someone like to make an motion to pass the consent agenda as revised? Councilmember Peretti?
I move to pass the consent agenda as revised for this evening.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved by Councilmember Peretti and seconded by Councilmember Whalen to pass the consent agenda as revised. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried 6-0. So council, our first item this evening is a proclamation. I do want to point out, it got inserted into your packet in a weird spot. It's on page 11. Your consent agenda is fine because it's listed on your agenda, but just so you know, we realize it was inserted into the wrong spot. So this week is National Public Works Week, and so I will read the proclamation for this year. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of the city of Milton, Washington. And whereas these infrastructures, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated effort of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essentials to our residents. And whereas it is in the public interest for the residents, civil leaders, and the children in the city of Milton to gain knowledge of and maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2024 marks the 64th annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association. And now, therefore, I, Shanna Styron Sherrill, Mayor of the City of Milton, Washington, do hereby proclaim the week of May 19th through the 25th, 2024 as National Public Works Week. I urge all our residents to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association and government agencies in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. So Director Madden, on behalf of the City of Milton, we do thank our entire Public Works Department for their work. So council, next on our agenda are two appointments to the Planning Commission. The first one is on page 35 of your packet. This is a reappointment for Ms. Jacqueline Whalen, who has been, I thought I had in my notes how long you've been on the Planning Commission. Maybe you'll highlight that when you get up to the podium. But both Anjali and I highly recommend that we reappoint Jacqueline Whalen to the Planning Commission. She has been a vital part of the group, serving as chair in the past, and really has the institutional knowledge that benefits our Planning Commission. And so, Ms. Whalen, would you like to say any words before I open up the floor to council?
Thank you, Mayor, council, staff. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve on the Planning Commission. I started in 2002. I was, can you turn this mic down? Please, thank you. I started out just being put on the Planning Commission, appointed, and then receiving a phone call from the mayor at the time saying, guess what, you're on the commission. I asked why. His response was, when I was campaigning, the questions you asked made it clear that you cared about a community that, in my words, I would say, I care about our community and that it's safe. I'm looking for small scale development, scenic, clean, sensible, creative, happy, inspired, verdant, meaning lots of greenery, gentle and peaceful place to live. And the learning curve was quite steep, and I have found myself feeling intensely connected to the value that one can do on the Planning Commission in serving short range and long-term goals and vision and planning. And I'm willing to work for another term to continue to make our city a better place to live, supporting low density, small scale development, lots of sidewalks, bicycle lanes, and strong green infrastructure. So I hope you will support the mayor's recommendation to appoint me to the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Whalen. I will take a motion for the appointment of Ms. Whalen. Councilmember Whalen?
Thank you, Mayor. Move to approve Mayor Sharon Styron Sherrill's recommendation to reappoint Jacqueline Whalen to the Planning Commission, position number 2, for a term to expire May 31st, 2030.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Whalen and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker to approve Mayor Styron Sherrill's recommendation to reappoint Jacqueline Whalen to the Planning Commission, position 2, for a term to expire May 31st, 2030. Councilmember Whalen, did you want to speak to your motion?
Yes, I would. I recently had the opportunity to talk to Ed Weinbreth. It's probably not a name that most people on the council at present recognize. He spent 30 years on the Planning Commission. Like every other planning commissioner, you have today's dreams and tomorrow's wishes, and you have to move in that direction appropriately. I just wanted to say that having folks that will commit themselves to that amount of time in their lives to work with the city of Milton on a volunteer basis, they are greatly appreciated. And the value of having experienced people who have lived through 20 years or Ed's position, 30 years, you see a lot of changes that you didn't expect. And I think in most cases, we've come to be a better city. I say most cases because there is a small town characteristic about the 2,700 people that lived in Milton back then to the almost 9,000 or maybe 9,000 plus.
Getting close to 9,000.
It's
yeah.
changed. And it's good to have a mix of new views and a combination of old views and wishes. And it's a wonderful thing to have people stay on that term, in that position for as long as it has, to help people understand how we've changed. You know, I greatly appreciate her efforts, and I think the council does also.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you. I just, for the sake of brevity, I want to thank you for your service and your perseverance and your dedication and passion to the Planning Commission and to the city in general. The commission needs more people like that and that vision, and I agree that that with that knowledge of being on the commission for so long, that you still be there and keep the commission going, and just to let them know where the commission has been and where it can go. So thank you.
Any other comments from council? Okay. It has been moved by Councilmember Whalen and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker to approve Mayor Styron Sherrill's recommendation to reappoint Jacqueline Whalen to the Planning Commission, position 2, for a term to expire May 31st, 2030. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried 6-0. Thank you. So the next item is a new appointment to the Planning Commission. You find that on page 37 of your packet. Michaela Zaro, I knew I'd mess it up, is a newer member to the city of Milton. I believe it's been about 2 years. And Planning Manager Stallnecker and I interviewed her, and we instantly thought she would bring a great perspective and view to this Planning Commission. As a younger resident, she has chosen Milton as her home. She wasn't raised here, but she chose to be a resident here, and I think that was an interesting and beneficial factor. She's also in the engineering field, which I think brings a very interesting perspective, and she deals with governments as well, and so I think that will benefit the Planning Commission. And so would you like to come up and speak briefly? Okay.
I'd like to second Jacqueline's beautiful words. But on top of that, I'm really looking forward to learning about how the city of Milton works and what else it has to offer that I haven't been able to experience yet. And like Shanna said, I have a background in civil engineering that I think can provide a nice technical side to the Planning Commission, and I'm really looking forward to it, and I'd love to meet each of you after this. Thank you.
I should also add that when Michaela showed interest, we did ask her to attend some planning commission meetings, and she has attended too. So she has an idea of what is involved with planning commission, which is, I think, a good thing. So I would love a motion to appoint Michaela. Councilmember Whalen?
Thank you, Mayor. Bear with me, I'm having a little vision issue with new glasses and things. Move to approve Mayor Cyrone Sherrill's recommendation to appoint Michelle, pronounce that for me, Michaela Zaro to the Planning Commission, position number 6, for a partial term to expire May 31st, 2028.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Whalen and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker to approve Mayor Styron Sherrill's recommendation to appoint Michaela Zaro to the Planning Commission, position 2, for a partial term to expire May 31st, 2028. Councilmember Whalen, did you want to speak to your motion?
Well, just one more thing. I'm very interested to understand you're coming to Milton at this particular time, dedicating yourself for the next several years and so forth. And what you learn and believe and can contribute to the city of Milton is invaluable. So thank you very much for listening to your opportunity.
Thank you, Councilmember Whalen. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you. I think being an engineer will be a definite asset to the Planning Commission, and that you're a Coug. And also a Sooner, but Sooner must have been, was that graduate school? But WSU is still good for undergraduates, so. But I'm glad that you're willing to jump aboard on the Planning Commission. And I think you'll do well. Thank you.
Any other comments from council? Okay. Yeah, oh, I'm sorry, I did not see your hand. Councilmember White?
I was just curious as to who she's going to be replacing. Who stepped down?
Sabbatha.
Sabbatha?
Mm-hmm. Sabbatha stepped down.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. It's been moved by Councilmember Whalen and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker to approve Mayor Styron Sherrill's recommendation to appoint Michaela Zaro to the Planning Commission, position 6, for a partial term to expire May 31st, 2028. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried 6-0. If we could do a really quick photo with our new appointments and council, I know that our community outreach would probably like that for the newsletter. So who is the most professional photographer on this side of the podium?
I will volunteer. I
Okay.
don't know about the professional.
Sorry. Holding everybody up. Go ahead.
I'm
I had
sorry.
a foot cramp. Picture.
Welcome. Yes. That is true. Right. 3, 2, 1. One more. 3, 2, 1.
Oh, you sounded like Martin now.
I get it if it gets too late.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, So. Okay. So council, we have our first regular agenda item on page 43 of your packet. It is Public Works Vehicle Surplus Resolution. I wrote the wrong one down. I'm on the wrong page. Hang on. My apologies. 39. It is for Resolution 24-1970. I'm going to turn the floor actually all night over to Director Madden. And following his review, I will need a motion to open up the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This is an action item before you tonight. We have there's a misprint there, 6 older Public Works vehicles that are no longer of value to the city for operational use. In order to surplus these items, the city must approve a resolution declaring the property surplus and authorizing its disposal. The 6 vehicles before you tonight, the first 2 are landscape trailers that the city used during when we had our own Parks Division. They were repurposed, but they are no longer of use or of structural value. And those 2 trailers are 1999 and 1980. The number 3 is a Ford vehicle. This is the oldest vehicle in our operational fleet. It is set for replacement. It is still in use, but its life cycle is making it more expensive to repair than replace. Number 4 is an international dump truck that was replaced by Vehicle 46 when council authorized the purchase of a new dump truck. Number 5 is a Ford Expedition that has been used for our metering. We have replaced that vehicle with a surplus item from PD that was repurposed. And then number 6 is the Tiger truck, 2005, and that is a low mileage per hour vehicle. It maxes at 25. And because of its uniqueness, the cost of maintaining that vehicle has exceeded its current value. Recommended action this evening, move to approve Resolution 24-1970, declaring obsolete public works equipment to be surplused and authorized the disposal of same.
Recommend a motion to open up the floor. Councilmember Whalen.
Thank you, Mayor. Move to approve Resolution 24-1970, declaring obsolete public works equipment to be surplus and authorize the disposal of same.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Whalen and seconded by Councilmember Hall to approve Resolution 24-1970, declaring obsolete public works equipment to be surplus and authorizing the disposal of same. Councilmember Whalen, did you want to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Mayor. And we go through these replacements fairly frequently, but we also go through equipment rather longly. We own this equipment for a substantial time. And the trust and faith in the Public Works Department to replace these vehicles when their service life is either near or exceeded their recommended service life and replace them is a great benefit to the citizens of Milton to have adequate equipment to maintain what you all are responsible for. I drive a 2000 Ford pickup truck. Believe me, if I was doing the work you had, I would have gotten rid of it about 10 years ago. That's just the way that the service vehicles are. So it's appreciated that they've lasted this long and feel very comfortable in providing additional replacement equipment for said services that you provide.
Councilmember Hall?
I also appreciate that when our vehicles are no longer needed for a specific department, that the city's looking where we can maybe fit them into another department. A police vehicle may not be safe for the kind of work that the police do, but it certainly can. And I see that across the city. I know the vehicles that were police vehicles, and I see them being transformed. And that is just a savings for the citizens. And it makes me feel proud that our city's looking to save money.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councilman, or excuse me, Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate all the trouble you go through to actually keep track of these and know when they're running out of their lifespan. And the fact that, as Councilmember Hall just said, that I'm glad that before you do put them out to pasture, that you also kind of repurpose them if you're able to do so. And that saves the citizens, saves the city money when you're able to do that. These were on, for lack of another term, like the amortization schedule, correct, over time?
Correct.
So these, we already knew that we were going to do them. It's time for these to be repurposed, to be surplus, correct?
Correct.
And some of them you said we've already purchased vehicles that replaced these, some of them.
One of them in
One of them?
particular, yes. The dump truck.
Okay, all right. That was all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from council? Okay, it is an action item. Are there any comments from the audience? Okay. It has been moved by Councilmember Whalen and seconded by Councilmember Hall to approve Resolution 24-1970, declaring obsolete public works equipment to be surplus and authorizing the disposal of same. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried 6-0. Moving on to our second item is on page 43 of your packet. It is a stormwater rate increase, ordinance 2084-24. Again, I'll turn the floor over to Director Madden, and then following his review, I will need a motion to open up the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The item before Council tonight is the second reading of Ordinance 2084-24. It is to increase the stormwater utility rates. Those rates were presented to Council on April 8th as part of a utility rate study provided by FCS. Those rates are identified to cover all of our capital improvement projects over the next 6 years and set the utility up for success moving into the future. Recommended action tonight is moved to approve Ordinance 2084-24, stormwater utility rate increase as presented.
Councilmember Whalen?
I move to approve ordinance 2084-24, storm utility rate increase as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Whalen and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker to approve ordinance 2084-24, stormwater utility rate increase as presented. Councilmember Whalen, did you want to speak to your motion?
Yes, I would, and thank you very much. Stormwater utility rates went under considerable study. It's probably 10 or 15 years ago. I'm guessing on that. I know it's more than 10. And it was recognized that the rates we had may not be as appropriate as they should be. We went through a huge study looking at all of the residencies and so forth about what the stormwater rate was and how do you calculate it. And at that time, every piece of property was looked at for their stormwater usage or the stormwater on their property. The city spent a lot of time doing that. The city basically came up with a program for step increases of so many percents per year to keep up with the cost of doing stormwater utility. Unfortunately, at the time, it was rejected, and we went back to the standard that we are using today. So we've actually lost probably 10 or more years of increasing the rate proportionally to the expenses the rate is incurring on maintaining the stormwater and the equipment to do that. So we sit here with a page that has a 25% increase. If we had done our increases as we had thought 10, 15 years ago, that rate would still be going up about 3% as normal increases. But we were not able to come to an agreement on how to do that. So it looks hurtful, but all it is catching up with what we didn't do over the last 10 to 15 years and incrementally increasing the stormwater rate per the cost of providing that particular service. And every year it gets a little bit more costly. So what we see here is in the next 3 years, we have a significant increase to catch up with that cost that we are spending. And then modest increases of 3% thereafter. That's only catching up with what's happened. So my feeling is if you don't do it soon, you pay a hell of a lot more for it when you do it. And that's what we're doing. We're catching up with the mistakes of the past. So I'm comfortable with it. Do I want to pay an increase of 25%? Hell no. Should I have paid an increase of 2% per year for the last 10 years? Then it would only have been a 5% increase. So the best thing we can do with the public is make it gentle when we know what it's going to cost, as opposed to making it a little bit more substantial than that. But it's because of the mistakes that were made within the city and the council to not do it 10 or 15 years ago. We were looking at every piece of property, of what it should be and so forth. Made it very complicated. So thank you for recognizing that. I appreciate the council's understanding of why this is such a significant change, but it's appropriate to do. That's why I support it.
Thank you. Mayor Potem?
Thank you. Decisions like this are never easy to make. You basically just said that yourself. And, but they have to be made. And if we wait 10, 15 years from now, it's not going to be any easier. It'll just be a greater increase by that point. We went through this when we raised the electrical rates for that very same reason. So I support this, and it needs to be done. We kind of discussed it in the last meeting, how you've got to cover your costs. If you don't cover your costs, then you won't have that utility under your control anymore. So I'm for this, and I appreciate the explanations and the information that has been given in the past when we've discussed this to help you really understand why it needs to be done. And I greatly appreciate that information that was put forth. That's all. Thank you.
Any other comments from council? Okay, it is an action item. Is there any comments from the audience? Okay. It has been moved by Councilmember Whalen and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Whitaker to approve Ordinance 2084-24, Stormwater Utility Rate Increase as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried 6-0. Moving on to our next item this evening, it's on page 57 of your packet. It is a stormwater development fee ordinance 2085-24. Once again, I'll turn the floor over to Director Madden, and then following his review, I will need a motion to open up the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, before you tonight is another action item related to stormwater. This is not related to rates. It is a system development charge that would be in addition to rates, and the goal of a system development charge is to offset new development within the city, offset stormwater impacts by new development within the city. This stormwater system development charge is in compliance with state RCWs. And just as a reminder, this was presented also on April 8th by FCS. The first read was on May 6th. And system development charges are, the methodology behind them is you identify all of your existing cost basis, your future cost basis per the rate evaluation and project in utility evaluation, and those are over total capacity. With future projections, we could have up to 12,397 connections. So we took a look at all of the value of the asset, both existing and future, and those are divided by total amount of connections, and that is how the system development charge was determined. This is a one-time charge for new development. The recommended action tonight is to move to approve ordinance 2085-24, stormwater system development charge as presented.
Entertain a motion. Councilmember Peretti.
I move to approve ordinance 2085-24 stormwater system development charge as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Peretti and seconded by Councilmember Whalen to approve ordinance 2085-24 stormwater system development charge as presented. Councilmember Peretti, did you want to speak to your motion?
Yes, I appreciate your explanation. A lot of people don't realize the backside of charges that you have to, or expenses that a city occurs when development happens and you're bringing in stormwater systems for a unit or multiple units in that case. It's a small fee when you think about it, but all the other type of fees that you have on development and that, but I appreciate, because as we do this, without doing this, it just causes you to increase your rates that you're doing in the city also, because you're not bringing in these funds from development side of the house also. So I think it's a nice balance. It's not a huge fee, but it's something that needs to be done.
Thank you. Councilmember Whalen?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with everything Steve Peretti, council member, has stated, and it is necessary to do.
Okay. Any other comments from council? Councilmember White?
I just want to, again, voice my opposition to this fee. I think on the heels of the 75% over the 6-year increase that we just enacted, I think this is excessive. It contributes to raising property taxes on our residents because impact fees get passed on to the end user or the end buyer, which then affects the property values and comparables in the area. So you have all of these various impact fees that not only affect affordable housing, but also cause property taxes to increase when the value of the new property is purchased and become comparables. So I just think on the heels of this incredible increase, which I supported and I appreciate the fact that we raised those fees without debt. But I think this is a step too far, and I just can't support it. Thank you.
Any other comments? Councilmember Whalen?
Just a question. Within the area that we live, has everybody else not raised these particular rates, not raised the actual cost that it takes to develop in a city like similar to Milton? I suspect that the development charge in, I'll pick a city, Edgewood, Fife, Federal Way, and surrounding neighborhoods have not stayed static and not increased per the cost that they have to bear to create this development. Is that not right? I mean, are we that far behind everybody else, or are they that far ahead of us to recover the costs of development?
Out of the 16 comparable utilities that the city assessed during the system development charge review, the city of Milton is the lowest of those 16. It's actually 17, including Milton. At 416, we would be well below the average, which is right around $1,600 of those 17 utilities. And I will say that stormwater in general is a newer utility. to the state compared to water and electricity. And so as municipalities brought that utility on, they realized what the cost was to operate that utility. And I believe that these system development charges that others are assessing to new development is a way to offset rates of general residents.
So we're just more, what you might say, in step with what is being done all around us. Nobody's going to come to the city of Milton for $400 less, per se, than someplace else. It's the cost of living. It's the cost of what we have to provide the services. Our downfall is that we don't do it incrementally and keep up with this every year or every analysis that we do. So that's what I would anticipate in the future, that analysis, it may come as a raise every year, small, maybe not this particular number, but to keep current with the cost. And we're nobody's coming to Milton because nobody's going to stop coming to Milton because of this particular raise. This particular raise has been created in every other city around us. So we're doing the best for the city. And it's appreciated that you come forward with this, and thank you.
Thank you.
Any further comments? It is an action item. Are there any comments from the audience? Okay. It has been moved by Councilmember Peretti and seconded by Councilmember Whalen to approve ordinance 2085-24 stormwater development charge as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Carried 5-1. Council, before we move on to our next item, I just need to make a note. There were no public comments signed up this evening, but I failed to mention that we emailed you a public written comment earlier this afternoon. I also have copies for you. So I just need to note for the record that Anthony Moore, resident of Milton's, written comments have been submitted to the record. Moving on to our next item this evening. It is on page 8D of your packet. It is ordinance 2081-24 for Zayo Group LLC franchise agreement. I'm going to pass this over to our director once again, and then I will need a motion to open up the floor for discussion.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. To help me present this item tonight is our legal counsel, Andrew Soming. At this point, I would like to turn the floor over to him, and he can give a review of what this agenda item is and what, if passed, this ordinance would allow the city.
Good evening, Council. It's good to see you again. So before you is approval of an ordinance 2081-24, which is a franchise, or rather proposed franchise agreement with Zayo Group LLC. If I remember correctly, Zayo Group is a telecom franchise. Dr. Madden is not a yes. My office has reviewed the proposed ordinance before you to ensure that it complies with both state, federal law, as well as Milton Municipal Code Chapter 12.05, which regulates franchise agreements. 12.05 essentially outlines certain requirements that need to be in franchise agreements and some things that ideally should be placed in them. So happy to take your questions at this time.
Councilmember Strader.
I noticed there was quite a bit of change in the old one. Is that just because some of the language is outdated and not attuned to certain elements that are going on with the agreement?
Yes, great question. There were some changes made to kind of keep up with current law. Most of the changes were to comply with Chapter 12.05. 12.05, again, kind of has certain things that Council indicated would like to see within its franchise agreement, certain language regarding indemnification, insurance. Essentially, we kind of took a lot of that language and inserted it in there to ensure that that was compliant with that.
Yes, I saw that the underground language is in there, and I appreciate that.
Can I just request a motion to open up the floor for further discussion? Since the attorney's here, we do need to follow protocol for sure.
Sorry.
I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 2081-24, adopting Zayo Group LLC franchise agreement.
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Strader. It's been moved by Councilmember Strader and seconded by Councilmember Whalen to approve ordinance 2081-24, adopting Zayo Group LLC franchise agreement. Councilmember Strader, did you have any further questions?
No further questions. I just think this is, it's well done, and I appreciate all the hard work.
You can ask the question again. I mean, it's fine.
Councilmember Whalen?
Well, thank you, Mayor. This is an item that a similar item that we see at council quite often. I could not tell you what the regional costs are. I could not tell you what the changes are regionally and so forth. But this approval benefits greatly the city of Milton. And we need to stay current with the expenses to do this. If we would delay anything like this and so forth, I have no idea what the world would look like. So I'm trusting, and I'm saying this openly in council, that all the research is done and that this is an appropriate change for us to adopt this franchise agreement.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments from council? Okay, it is our last action item of the evening. Is there any comments from the audience? Okay. It has been moved by Councilmember Strader and seconded by Councilmember Whalen to approve ordinance 2081-24, adopting Zayo Group LLC franchise agreement. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried 6-0. Moving on to our last item this evening. This is a presentation and discussion, so no action will be taken this evening. It is regarding the traffic calming program. And once Director Madden's ready, I will turn the floor over to him.
Lights, are those over here?
No, we'll get him.
Yeah, you might want to. I want to blind you. Thank you, Andrew. Which one would you like first?
The Milton.
Is there a play?
It says that you need to register your PowerPoint.
Well, this is odd. I won't play PowerPoint.
Yeah.
This, yes. Right. Let's try one more time.
Could bring up the agenda PDF.
Okay, that's a good
Out of the way.
idea.
I don't know.
Tricia, are you able to help me with bringing up the PDF
Like maybe go to the website and just bring it.
on the website?
Maybe.
Yes.
Does the city pay for a Microsoft 365 Office?
We do,
It's asking me to sign into it.
but I don't know what account that is because it said what did it say, manager?
Thumb drive, it might be his
Yeah.
corporate.
be able to open
Is it
hours.
USB?
Yeah, it had a name at the top. That way, it said like.
So you're good on the mic?
Oh, no,
signer
I don't have
as
that. Dang it.
administrator
Okay.
or-
Unfortunately, no, I don't have that
think that's
particular cable on this one.
Proprietary cables.
Try signing in with your login to 365.
Okay, I may have to do it on the.
Login to your, it's the same
Wait,
as your
Mike, I'm gonna do
password.
it with the
Okay.
computer.
Okay.
So this.
It's like surgery.
Yes. This.
No anesthetic.
Yeah, we can work off
Part of the
that.
suite, 365, so you log into
Yeah,
your.
they should be able to.
This is just an example of why we are looking into getting screens on the walls that we can connect to our computer over here.
Work in
So,
progress.
yes. But sooner than later, I think we're getting close.
Thank you, Andrew.
Cross. Don't ask my IT department, I did not just do that.
Yay.
Well.
Yes.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Andrew. Council, the item before you tonight is a discussion item. The city has been working with Transpo Group really over the last 6 months, year, to develop a traffic calming program. And John, one of the senior engineers with Transpo Group, is here to present on what the findings have concluded. And this item will be coming back for adoption at a future meeting. So this is just a discussion item tonight.
All right, I think I can kind of just walk around here and control it. So good evening, council, mayor. Happy to be back. I was last year in November to present, I think, a lot of what you see here today, but now kind of the final recommendations and draft proposal for the traffic calming program. I do want to say I am a civil engineer too, and I got my start on the planning commission.
Wow.
And then I became a council member too in my hometown. So you never know where that goes. So just be careful. So the study that we did with the traffic calming program was basically to develop a formalized program. But as part of that, we looked at some corridors where there's some speeding issues that you've been having for probably decades. And collected some data. We also reviewed your roadway design standards and took all of that into account as we were crafting the program. So really looking for any input you have today, but I do want to say that the input you gave in November helped craft the final draft that's before you today. I think what we really want you to focus on today is the policies and the procedures and the actual program itself. And there's a handbook that was attached in the packet. And that handbook is meant for public consumption. It's meant to basically formalize your program, be put up on your website. And so anyone who has a concern around vehicle speeding or safety can review that as the formal process for the city taking action. And, you know, I think what's important about this is that while the city's been doing a good job responding in an ad hoc way, remember, there's going to be future staff, there's going to be future council members, there's going to be future mayors, and you want to make sure that you do it in a consistent manner so that expectations are set from the very beginning. In terms of the events that we were first here in March of 2023 at your council retreat, and then presented the findings in November. And we actually completed the draft program document in January. So the traffic calming program is like I said earlier, basically a step-by-step process, basically that outlines to any community member that might have an issue around speeding or safety along your roadways, as a formal process by which they can submit a concern or complaint, and then that can be investigated and prioritized accordingly based upon the level of resources that the city council put towards this program each year. It identifies thresholds for which when an evaluation would take place along a roadway, when a potential traffic calming device could be implemented. All of this is dependent upon funding, though. Funding this doesn't fund the program. This sets the guidelines for how things get implemented. And it also identifies the types of solutions that would be, that the city would support along its transportation system. And then finally defines the public input process and the process for how decisions are made. This is a step-by-step workflow diagram of how, once a request for service is received by the city, how it should kind of go through the process. One of the first steps would be to collect potentially additional data. You don't have unlimited amount of roadways. Many of the roadways have been studied, so it would be a matter of, hey, should we get some updated data to see if things have changed, because some of these corridors have been studied several times in the past. From that, then, should an engineering study be done? And so the program identifies those thresholds, and then what to do with the results of the engineering study. So that's really what this flow diagram is meant to showcase. There are different phases of the program. The first phase is what I would call kind of the investigative phase, the kind of low cost, kind of education, enforcement, making sure that we're doing everything that we can before any types of investments really need to occur, and make sure that that we're trying everything that's around education, enforcement, low cost solutions like signing, striping, and then seeing and understanding how that may or may have not changed results. Phase two is then when we've seen consistent patterns of vehicle speeding that have been documented, that the data has shown to be the case, that it's over these thresholds. And then from that, identifying the types of traffic calming measures that could be considered by the city, the Public Works Department, and ultimately approved by council. I just want to be clear that this program does not replace the continued things that the city needs to be doing from an enforcement and education perspective. What we're trying to do is change travel behavior, trying to change how drivers behave when they're behind the wheel. And so it's always going to take education. It's always going to take continued enforcement. And that means targeted enforcement of known problem areas. It's continued use of your feedback trailer, speed trailer, and it's continued monitoring of results and seeing how things change over time. Now, there are probably more needs out there than you can fund, or that you have the resources to fund in a timely manner. So it really comes down to prioritizing what the greatest needs are. And so this program really sets out what those priorities are for the city. So when it comes time to take action and consider implementing a physical calming device, then what should be the first corridor? What should be the first location? Do you have objective criteria that you can tell a resident on this street that, yes, your street deserves something, and then, or we will fund something, and a resident that is calling you and emailing you with the same exact problem on their street? How do you prioritize that? So we want to give you some tools that you can make those decisions and be objective. And so it's around three kind of key criteria: safety, roadway characteristics, and community context. So you see the first one, safety, is really about the data: crashes, speeds, what type of roadway it is, how many cars are traveling along that roadway. Then we get into the roadway characteristics. Are there sight distance issues? Is there a horizontal kind of curvature? Is there vertical curvature where it limits sight distance? Are there active transportation facilities? And then community context is really, where is it located? Is it close to a school? Is it close to a park? Is it close to something that's generating pedestrian traffic or vulnerable users tend to be more frequent at that location. And then we do have to be very mindful of emergency access, whether it's a bus corridor. And it's always good to understand the level of public support out there. That doesn't have to be a driving factor, but it's good to obviously understand that. One of the discussions we had last time in November was really about what that public notification process should be, and you all provided some input. And so based upon that input I received from council, we said that, you know, if a traffic calming device is shown to be needed and that you are looking to implement that device or devices, that there would be a public notification through your existing communication channels that you have as a city today, whether that's email distribution list, posting of public notices, or just how you normally notify the public. But that would be accompanied by mailers to property owners that are within 1,000 feet of the proposed location or locations of a traffic calming device, so that they would be directly contacted because they may be most directly impacted. And then there would be a 60-day comment period that you would accept comments from the general public on that proposal. And then finally, the Public Works Department would make the final decision based upon the public input. So that's how the policy and the program's crafted today in terms of the decision-making process and public notification. So that was kind of an overview of the program, and that's kind of what we finalized as part of, since I last came and talked to you. The other thing that you all had asked us to do was to take a look at your roadway design standards that you have in the city. I believe those were adopted, I don't know, 10 years ago or so or more, or last updated. And these are the guidelines and the standards by which, you know, when new development happens or capital projects take place, that's what you design roadways to, or pedestrian facilities or bike facilities or so forth. And you wanted us to take kind of a safety lens look at those. So should any of those standards be changed with the mindset of, would it help reduce vehicle speeds over time? And so we did find some things that the city should consider updating at some point. This isn't anything that's needed to be done right away. It's really up to kind of setting a work program and whether that can fit into you know, the other things on staff's plate. But it would be looking at the design speeds seem to be a little bit high for some of your roadway standards. Those could be potentially lowered to kind of some of the design speeds that you desire today, rather than designing roadways to 40-mile-per-hour speed. Let's think about lowering that design speed. Let's also look at other things like reducing lane width and median widths. They are a little bit wider than many other cities are adopting today or have changed. So instead of 12-foot lanes, let's do 11-foot lanes. That's going to allow you then to dedicate more right-of-way space to sidewalks or bicycle facilities. Your bike lane standard takes into account the gutter where the water runs into the drain. Typically, the bike lane should be measured by outside the gutter, so 5 feet outside the gutter. So your bike lane design standard should be updated to reflect the latest best practices. And then as you get into higher classification roadways, you should consider a buffer between the bicyclists and the vehicles because of faster speeds, greater volumes, and you want to really encourage not, you know, all ages and abilities to use the bike facilities. We did collect speed data, and this was information I shared last time. We looked at 8 different locations throughout the city. We collected daily traffic counts, what we call 50th, 85th, and 95th percentile speeds, pace speeds, and other kind of statistical information that really, where we can compare and contrast how a corridor is performing. It was Emerald Street, Milton Way, Taylor, 20th or Yuma, and then 28th Avenue were the different corridors. What was clear from the data, and I don't think this was a surprise by any of you, was the corridors that stood out the most was Taylor Street, 20th, and 28th Avenue. 28th Avenue was actually at the top of the list in terms of the magnitude of speeding that was occurring. 85th percentile speeds, 40 to 42. That is a pretty significant when a speed limit's 25 miles an hour. So the ones that are highlighted in bold are ones that we looked at a little bit further in terms of, based upon your traffic calming program, what would be some types of devices that the city could consider at some point implementing. And so for Taylor Street, some of the physical devices, and this wouldn't just be one speed hump or one mini roundabout, it would be a series of it's a system approach where we're looking at the entire corridor, looking at where a mini roundabout, which could slow speeds, not require additional right-of-way, and be kind of like a small little traffic circle, but would require vehicles to slow down as they navigate. And that would be at intersections, kind of major intersections along Taylor. And then speed humps would be interdispersed between that. So that would be kind of the concept there that we could prepare and kind of share and further flesh out in kind of a later exercise. 28th Avenue has already been looked at a little bit already with the Milton Interurban Trail Extension with a raised crosswalk there south of SR 161. But accompanied with that, as it kind of goes through the dip, probably associated with another speed hump or radar, a permanent radar feedback sign as well, because that tends to, either direction you're going, the traffic is catching up speed as it's going downhill. And then Yuma Street, that's out of all of these corridors except Milton Way, that's a minor arterial. So the traffic calming program does distinguish between the types of devices that are appropriate for minor arterials or principal arterials as opposed to collector streets and local streets. So they have different classifications, and so therefore there's different devices that are more appropriate depending upon the classification of the roadway. Yuma Street is a little bit unique because the south side is Edgewood. A lot of development's been occurring there, and so it's been widening out the street. It's actually been encouraging higher speeds because the street's actually getting wider. So that's something that we need to be, that's where kind of roadway design standards both on Milton and Edgewood could help play a role in making sure that we're not creating and exasperating a problem in the future. So that's why we're looking at all of this in totality. We're not just focusing on, we're looking at all your regulations that contribute to speeding. So next steps, what we would recommend is that the council consider adopting this program, formalizing it, and then it would be there to reside on how staff responds to requests. Once that's essentially formally adopted, then we could go back to those corridors and use your program to actually evaluate and come up with proposals, if the council so chooses, on what types of design could help address the speeds along those corridors. And then we'd also recommend that a future work program item be added to where you'd update your public works standards with reducing speeds in mind. So that's essentially a summary. And again, we have the report that's attached that has all the details about the program.
John, can you give an example of other municipalities that have adopted a similar program?
I would say that there's a lot. Federal Way, Kent, Auburn, Tacoma, Lakewood, Puyallup. Edgewood's thinking about doing one. I know that they have some needs as well. So yeah, a lot of agencies do, because this is an issue that I think some of you that have been on council for a long time continues to come up and over, and it would be nice to have a formalized program in which you can say, hey, this is how we do it.
Mayor Protem?
Thank you. Do you tend to with or is it wise to then on the streets where the speeding over the limit is greater, like you're saying on Yuma? Do you get more drastic then? Do you use the elements then that tend to slow cars down more? Does that tend to be your recommendation?
So,
You
like-
follow the question?
yeah, like, so you're talking about like higher classified roadways like Yuma?
No,
or-
but just, I know some of these traffic calming elements are going to cause cars to slow down more.
Yeah,
So on those roadways where you tend to have, that 85 percentile, but they're, or even higher than that, do you tend to go toward the ones that tend to slow cars down a little bit more because cars are tending to drive faster on those roadways?
I mean, that's definitely a consideration. There's only so many tools that we have. So, I think what you'll find is the tools for something that's a higher degree of speeding versus kind of a lower degree, they tend to be the same. It's just more, I think it's more about priorities.
Okay.
Is kinda how I think
So
about
that
it.
doesn't tend to help.
Not necessarily, yeah.
Okay. I mean, you're the engineer and you've seen, the outcome to these different changes, so you'd know better than I do. But you've tended to not see.
So it's not, none of these things are going to eliminate speeding, right? There's always going to be people that speed and go fast and drive
They'll do it anyway.
recklessly, unfortunately. And I'm not saying that I support that, but that's just kind of reality. But what we can do is we affect a larger percentage of those that just aren't aware, aren't thinking, are kind of driving, just being unaware of their speeds, right?
So those are the people.
Those are the
you're-
folks that we're gonna
Okay.
have the biggest impact on.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Whalen?
Well, I want to welcome you back
Thank you.
because
Councilmember Whalen, I'm really sorry to interrupt you. Can you just move your mic? It's not picking up.
oh, I'm sorry. Let me do it this way like others do.
I can hear you actually when you're over
I know.
there.
Welcome you back. This is a familiar program, and I think your company has done this for us before. Even the pictures look pretty similar.
Yeah.
So you've been here before. My comment is, we did very little to solve the issues we had then, and the issues we have now more have multiplied. So we're not looking at a small particular problem. We were worried about Taylor Street in different areas. Now, Taylor's developing quite enormously. The traffic on that is going to get huge. 23rd is developing enormously, and that's not included here yet. So what I'm getting at is, if we don't listen to them now, we're going to be here the next 10 years and looking at the same pictures. That's what happens when you don't do what you need to do. I'm just saying that critically because we had the chance to solve a lot of this a while ago, and we're back on it. I appreciate your presentation. Even some of the pictures I think I've seen before, on the streets and the humps and things to do. So I appreciate that. The questions. We still have a lot of development that is about to blossom in the city of Milton. Fifth Avenue, I don't see anything here potentially about what's going to be on Fifth Avenue in Porter to 99 in the intersection. Don't see that yet. I don't see anything about the church yet. And that's going to be a significant 23rd Avenue and Porter Way, and Taylor. Taylor's got a lot of little problems. They've got a lot of little raceways going on. We have a lot of different things about line of sight issues. We're about to do something, I think, on Meridian from 15th, from, 11th up to Juniper, the turn by the church. We've got some concepts there and so forth. What I'm getting at is, I'm going to leave the council here someday. If you don't do it now, something soon, it's going to be twice what it used to be, and it is twice what it used to be. So I'm supporting this. Don't get me wrong. And that's what I wanted to say to start. I've got more for later.
Okay. Councilmember Peretti?
Appreciate your information that you brought. It's really good. Did we also do traffic count on these different roads too when we did the study?
We did.
And, okay, is that in the report? I went through it and wasn't sure
There is a full report that looks at all the assessment, traffic volumes, speeds, and we can break that information down and provide it to council.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that when you drive into Milton, everybody sees it. It says the posted speed limit is 25 miles an hour unless otherwise posted. And it's really interesting on how now our south side of our city is just ignoring what our speed limit is, it seems like. I don't think we could have enough police officers to pull everybody over watching what's going on some of these streets, and especially 28th. I mean, and 28th, I drive that all the time, and that one is a tough one because it's such a steep hill, and you have to just ride your brakes all the way down on that one. But I appreciate you pinpointing these areas because those are really hot points, and it's just, since we've done the study and watching that over there, it's just amazing to me how speed doesn't matter to folks driving around, I guess, for some reason. And I'm sure it's the pass-through. Today, even this morning, a late arrival in the Fife School District, and I was coming up out of 20th and just went straight up the hill, and I could not believe the traffic that was coming off of Meridian coming down. So there must have been something on I-5 or something, but I probably counted 70 cars in a line coming down off of Main 167, coming down, just cutting through the city, which is just floored me on how big that was. And so I'm hoping that some of this addresses that. I think the residents of Milton are kind of tired of all the pass-through, and we've talked about that ad nausea here in council for years, but somehow we can address this somehow to eliminate or try to reduce that somehow to encourage not such the pass-through through Milton when it takes you 5 minutes to even pull out onto Milton sometimes, which is really difficult. But I appreciate it.
Any other comments? Councilmember Strader?
In your study, did you take into fact when 167 is completed, will that have an effect at all? Because most of the cut-through is because for the last 35, 40 years, they've pushed back 167 completion project for years now, and that's part of the problem why we have so many cut-throughs, because people are trying to avoid the traffic backup on all the freeways. So would that have an effect at all? Do you know if 167 is completed?
What I would say is that this study was based upon the existing data and the
Just
existing
within
travel
the
patterns.
city?
Yeah,
Okay.
we didn't account for how travel patterns might change over time. And then the program, the traffic calming program that is before you is set up in a way that it can respond to existing, future, changing development, because it sets the criteria by which you take action. So that won't change no matter what.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor?
Yeah.
From staff's perspective, what is very, very appealing about formalizing and adopting a program is that one of the reasons that it's problematic to make these changes is turnover in city staff. And my position has had significant turnover over the last decade, and it's hard for a new public works director to come in and evaluate historic criteria and pick that ball up and run with it and make the right decision. And so what is appealing about this program for me is that, future versions of a public works director would be able to have an adopted toolbox that council approved, and they would be able to evaluate objectively the data and make a decision that is systematic and that it is backed up with the way that we prioritize projects in the city. I will say that what we're talking about today is the overview of the program and the criteria by which the program would be administered. This won't solve our cut-through traffic problems, but it will give us a toolbox of how to address those. Thank you.
That was very well said. And I just want to add some additional comments to what Director Madden said. What I really appreciate about the work that's been done is exactly what Director Madden said, is that it gives not only him, but everyone else a toolbox at the city. So I can think of 4 to 5 residents off the top of my head that I hear from almost monthly about the same street. And we had kind of a traffic calming program loosely, internally, and we've been using that and it's been helpful, but we need one more step. And actually all the residents I'm thinking of, they know this is coming and they're probably going to use it as soon as it's published. And so it's just a way to be fair and equitable across our city, because sometimes a resident will call and say, there is so much speeding, and we put out the data and there's like nothing, right? But to them, there's a lot. And so we can show them this traffic program and go, hey, you don't hit the mark for what we consider heavy traffic or heavy speeding. So for now, we're not going to move forward with anything. Or for now, we're going to put in a speed reader and then we'll reevaluate. Or for now, we're going to look at a speed hump if we can afford it. And so I just think it's going to be really helpful for us internally dealing with residents on how we are fair and equitable and how we address traffic throughout our city. Just wanted to add that as well. Councilmember White, did I see your hand?
Yes. I just had a technical question, I guess. Since Yuma seems to be one of the hotter spots, it's on the border between us and Edgewood. Who has jurisdiction? Do we have jurisdiction over the entire roadway or just the southbound lane?
The roadway as a whole.
The whole thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
until the city boundaries transition. I don't know the exact street, but I want to say that it's around 16th or 17th Avenue.
And so all of the right-of-way on both sides, so if we were to put in a calming circle, Edgewood would not have to be consulted?
We would consult them, but technically, no, it would be the City of Milton's decision to move forward if we put forth a traffic calming device within our right-of-way.
Okay, thank you.
Before I let you go a second time, was there anyone who hasn't spoke that has a question? No, okay, Councilmember Whalen?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question for you. Look into the future for the next 3 years. Should we put an emphasis on Fifth Avenue and Porter Way up to 99 in the circle and up to the development that went on there? I feel that that is probably one of the potentially most avoided speed limits in the city of Milton. There's nothing controlling it. There's no signs. Well, we could put signs up. We could put warning signs up, just like we do in front of the school. But we need to have something to calculate that, because that's one that could get out of hand very quickly if there isn't something to suppress heavy traffic or speeding or misuse of the circle and out to 99. I think that's something that's going to be difficult for us in the future if we don't do something soon. Just my point of view. That's what generally happens when you start to densify a particular area and bring in a substantial amount of additional traffic, which they don't have today. I don't know how many hundreds of trucks are going to come through there. I don't know how many hundreds of trucks are going to go down 23rd and Taylor, cars, so forth. Those should be focal points to show that we have, you might say, restraint on preventing something from getting out of hand before we do something to bring it back. And I think that's important for the city to consider.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hall, did I see your hand?
Yes, I mean, I'm an avid walker. Everybody knows I walk the city. And I think this is going to give us a gateway, not only to control what we're looking at now, but then research what happens when we implement it and then move further into other projects. I mean, personally, from what I'm seeing, and I'm not going to go over the streets at this point, but there are some very scary situations going on every day where there's actually some road rage happening. If somebody, I raised my hand one day and said, "What are you doing? You're coming right at me and you must be doing 50." And he come back and wanted to debate the issue of how fast he was going. And I generally was scared that he was going to hit me head on. So I think this is a good start. I think we need to re-review it and then move forward with other projects. Because I think once we slow down another street, we're going to have another issue on another street, is what I'm thinking.
Our Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you. And looking ahead, it'll be interesting. I will assume we'll do another traffic study after, for instance, the church is in. And on Fifth Avenue, once they're all done, I think especially on how the church will affect traffic on Taylor, that will be, and on 23rd, how that will change. It'll be interesting to see that. And I get what, you have to deal with the way things are now, but, and maybe some of these little changes need to be made, so then when these different developments are done, you do another traffic study, then you can accommodate for those changes, which you can't foresee now. You have no idea what it's going to be like, but once those are up and running, it'll be interesting to see that. See if it really, and how it changes traffic patterns and such.
Yeah, maybe just a little bit more context. With an adopted program that the council adopts, you can use that program as, if the city so chooses, as part of development review. So other cities will say, if they're concerned that a development's going to exasperate an issue, well, they can condition, hey, you have to do a monitoring study 2 years, after you open or something like that. And if it shows that it reaches a threshold as defined in this study, then you'll be required to, implement the improvements in here. So other cities use it that way, but you have to have an adopted program in order to do that kind of stuff.
Councilmember Whalen?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, we're going to go into the traffic calming program here next, right? A question. We have, by our school, a sign very similar to what Edgewood's been successful in doing on 122nd. And that gives you your announced speed, what you're doing. Before you get to the maximum speed of the sign, it does change color. In other words, you get a nice white, then it turns a little orange, or whatever the color is. And then if you go over the speed limit, it tells you slow down. Those are nice. Do they collect statistics?
You can buy some that will read the radar, the speed settings, and it will store that information. You can pull that data. The two that we just upgraded next to the school are able to calculate speed.
They do.
Correct.
So statistically, you can tell what the hot spots are. Where they're speeding, you can tell the time of the day. You can tell, is it business hours, is it school hours, is it weekends or whatever, but you can collect all that particular data.
My understanding is there's a 2-week turnaround time. So from when we request the data from the database, we have 2 weeks looking back. So I just want to condition it with, it's not an infinite record of speeds along the corridor.
But it's a log of 2 weeks.
Correct, yes.
So,
For the two signs, they all have different capabilities, but the two signs that we just installed, that is my understanding.
So you could pick a time, 2 weeks in September when school opens. You want to see what that 2-week opening period looks like, or what's happening. You have to define the time you want the information for.
I believe that from the date requested, you can go back 2 weeks.
Oh, from the date requested back 2 weeks. So if you requested every 2 weeks, you'd get more consecutive data.
Yes, that would be a way of gaming it to collect it. Yes, that's
To
good.
make it worthwhile for us to do that and so forth.
Correct.
Yeah, because I can see the benefit for that. I
And
can also
those
see-
new speed signs do, they turn to amber when you're within 5 miles of the speed limit. That's the different color that you were discussing earlier?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, it changes for that last 5 miles, from 30 to 35, I think it is on Melbourne Way, because it is a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit.
During non-school hours, or yes?
Yes, non-school hours, it does. And I was looking at that is as important as during school hours. What happens there, because you've got a shopping area front, you've got a park and so forth, and other things happening. Okay, I'm going to
Councilmember Schrader?
contemplate that.
And then Councilmember Hall.
Yeah, I support this 100%. You have to have a target to aim for before you can, so you know where you're going, and I think that's exactly what this does. And I'm 100% in support.
Councilmember Hall?
So that data for the 2 weeks, is that a remote access or is that something you have to physically go to the?
On this particular unit, we have to physically go there and download the data. If we wanted to move forward with a new system, they do make some that we can log in from a cloud server, but those are additional cost. And I would propose that if we wanted to do that, we should look at the system as a whole.
I guess you'd have to figure what it costs for somebody to check that every 2 weeks, multiple ones, and figure out what's feasible.
Well, that's in the vicinity of where the school light cameras are going to go,
Correct.
which will collect that data.
They will also, yes, collect data.
What did you say?
That's where the school zone cameras are going to go anyways, so
Yeah.
we'll have that
Yeah.
data as well.
I'm just thinking general,
Yeah.
if it's going to be more than a few, then
Yeah. Any other questions on this item? Okay. Councilmember Whalen?
Just curious. Traffic calming. There's a lot of things in here that, the extended humps at intersections and if we had done this 10 years ago, how much more is it going to cost us now? I mean, how much is the types of things that you have in here increased in price and difficulty and wages and so forth? Do you have a concept? What I'm getting at, if you don't do it today, it's going to cost you twice as much in 10 years, if not more. Is that fairly reasonable?
Yeah, of course. I'd just say that I think construction costs have gone up in the last 5 years, like 40%, just in general, so.
So if you don't do it today, in 2 years, it might cost you 40% more, or maybe less, but
Or less.
most likely 40% more if you don't. The sooner you do it, the more you save.
Director Madden, so this is going to come back to council. Or do we have more? This is the presentation, correct? Or is there more?
This is the traffic calming program that we are putting forth for council to formally adopt, and it will come back because it needs to be adopted through resolution.
Okay,
And I will bring it back in June.
okay. Okay. Perfect. Well, we appreciate your time this evening.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you all.
thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to council reports. I think I started that side last time, so Mayor Pro Tem, you want to start this time?
Sure, and you know what? I have nothing.
Okay. Councilmember White?
Not wanting to show up the pro tem, I have nothing as well.
Councilmember Peretti?
Nothing at this time.
Councilmember Cedar?
I do.
Or Cedar Strader?
Cedar Strader.
Cedar Strader.
Thank you.
We'll just combine you guys tonight.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I did go up to the corner where Councilmember Wayland said and check out that obstructed intersection, and I agree 100%. It's blocked on both sides when looking.
Director Madden, not to put you on the spot, do you want to comment on that since Planning Manager Stallnecker's not here?
On the site distance, I know Planning Manager Stallnecker has sent letters, and we are both in agreement that that vegetation needs to be removed permanently. Otherwise, it's going to be a seasonal issue moving forward.
Councilmember Hall?
Thank you for working on the trail down there with the trees going down, and we had widowmakers happening way up. I appreciate the efficiency and the attention to detail. Not only did you take the branches down, but you also cleared it to make it safer for everybody. Thank you.
Councilmember Wayland?
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a lot on my mind, but I don't know if I'm going to say everything tonight. First off, appreciate the traffic study. It's something that's labored behind us, just like raising the stormwater rates to keep up with inflation. What we're going to do now is going to cost us twice as much if we had done it 12 or 15 years ago. I'm estimating, but even if I'm 50% wrong, it's a big increase. But this is very important to the city of Milton. Now, why do we have so much traffic on Milton Way and 28th? It's because it's coming up out of the valley around the circle Edgewood put in, gave people a kind of a juxtaposed way to get across, and it's transit traffic. And that's why Milton Way is so congested. It's usually congested. I don't know what time everybody here drives it and so forth. I go to the Safeway Shopping Center, Plaza, Ace Hardware and so forth, at least once a day. And I can see things at certain times, sometimes in and around the school zones, where it's atrocious, the amount of traffic and the competitiveness of the traffic. The speed signs don't show you competitive. There's no way to see that unless you're there. And it's very competitive. 23rd has gotten competitive and speeding between Milton Way and, what am I talking about, Emerald? The stop sign? It's terrible. And those are the little side things. It's just not the, the big transit changes and so forth. 10th Avenue. Everybody's cutting off from Meridian, up 28th, down Alder, 23rd, down Emerald, and 10th and out, so forth. It's much more than just little pictures that we're seeing. So I think everybody needs to look at their neighborhood. You and I can see the same things pretty much. But look at your neighborhood and look at it at times that are different than you go out. Look at it at times when you think traffic is going to be the heaviest, and you're probably right, and go take a look at it and see what's happening. I've got been talking to Tony a little bit about license plates. I go to the Safeway Shopping Center or Ace and so forth at least once a day, and generally about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I can count 15 cars without license plates in the front of them. People aren't paying it, aren't doing their obligation. That's one aspect of it. A lot of them are speeders also. That's another aspect of it because you can't tag them because you can't see the plate. I'm glad that we're going to see the rear plate on our traffic intersections for ticketing, moving from the stop sign. But it's not getting any better in town. And I think if you look at it and you spend a little time, maybe every day, just take a little round and visualize what's happening. The city is congested, it's speeding, and who knows what else. I'm going to let it me think about this. I have a concern about code enforcement in the city of Milton. A year ago, I put in a code enforcement, did all the paperwork, pictures and all this stuff, and sent it into the city. And the city was in the process of cleaning it up and then stopped. Now it's back like it was 2 years ago. The intersection is a very difficult intersection. It's 16th and Milton Way. That's just before you get up to the big corner. And you can't see somebody parked at the stop sign. They've got to go 8 feet or so above the stop sign. That to people on 15 looks like they're running into the road. It's a terrible intersection. Speak up, folks. If you see these things, speak up. The city can't do it. We don't have a code enforcement officer. And you may not want to take the 2 hours it takes to do the code investigation, to take the pictures and take it to the city and follow up on it. But something more has to be done for some safety code violations, things that put people at risk. And they're all over the city. If you see them, please speak up. If you see them, I'll try to do the work with you to get it filed with the city. But something has to be done in that regard. More than just saying, we don't have a code enforcement officer, it's all volunteer work. I'm sorry, that's gotten a little out of hand. So appreciate the time and talking. One other thing, I'm going to ask Bruce just a favor. If you turn to the mayor, just like if I turn here, you can't hear me. I can't hear you. You almost got to do this stuff with the microphone. We're sitting in that position.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no, that's all right. It's just a reminder. Some voices don't travel as much as others. But thank you, and I appreciate the time.
Director Madden, do you have anything this evening?
Only that I'm very grateful to be part of the Public Works unit here at the City of Milton, and we have a dedicated group that saves countless dollars and resources and time and energy every day with their approach. It's just a wonderful group. To that end, we had, just so everyone knows, we had a demo here at the city 2 weeks ago where we had a company called Asphalt Zipper here, and they took a different approach to restoring the section of trail between Kent and Porter. That saved the city a significant amount of resources due to demolition and disposal. And we had 7 other municipalities here during the demo to view that unit and that procedure. So I am just very grateful for our team and the hard work that they do here at the city. Thank you.
Director Simpson? No addition. Chief?
Just give you guys an idea, it's been kind of busy for us again, nothing new. So I'll start with Thursday. Thursday, had an individual stole detergent from the Safeway grocery store, pulled a knife out on the people who were trying to stop him. We encountered him, ended up taking him into custody, and got the knife, and went to jail. Same night, three officers were slightly injured when they had to fight an individual who had broken into a residence regarding a DV situation. Skin knuckles, hurt backs. And then later on that night, we did a warrant and got 18 grams of fentanyl powder on a vehicle. We've had several stolen cars take off on us during that 2 or 3 day period. Had a stolen car with a 13-year-old and a 18-year-old who were caught at the Safeway parking lot, took off. We got one of the juveniles. The other one ended up fighting with Edgewood deputies who had to be tased. We had a DUI at the same time that failed to yield, and we ended up chasing that individual until we were able to get them into custody and process them for DUI. Planet Fitness, again, can't say it over and over again. Somebody put their wallet and keys in their locker, so they got their wallet stolen and their car stolen. So again, just trying to give you a sampling of how busy it is out there for our officers and keep them in your thoughts or prayers. Thank them for the job that they do, because right now it is very, very busy and very dangerous.
Just a couple of quick things here. I was able to confirm with the last council member this week that August 7th will work for our retreat. So as soon as I have a location secured for the council retreat, we'll get that on the website. But again, August 7th, 10 a.m. start time. Code enforcement, just want to update you that we have changed the form online for that. So if a council member or resident wants to report something they feel is not in compliance, it's a simple form. You just fill directly online and hit send, and it goes directly to the city. There's no printing out. There's no having to bring it in. It takes a matter of minutes. And I believe you do not have to put your personal information there. So it can stay pretty anonymous. VFW is having their Memorial Day service up at the Veterans Memorial at Milton Community Park next Monday at 1 p.m. They have invited all of council and city staff to attend. And then Milton Days is in full force planning. Events committee has asked if they would like to see more presence from council at Milton Days. And even if you have just an hour of time to volunteer, they would be greatly appreciated or appreciate that. So I will forward you the events committee email. And if you're interested in helping, they would love to hear from you. That is all I have. And so seeing that all the items this evening have been concluded, I will call for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. Any objection? Or seeing that it's been moved and seconded, is there any objection? Perfect.